real threat other than this pawn, but keep in mind you're not even going to be able to take our bishop. I'll have rook c4 at the end of that variation, so maybe it's time just to play a quiet move, king c7, and you just expect that the two rooks and bishop and, to quote Maurice, a gaggle of pawns, I like that, a gaggle of pawns is enough to win the day. That looks simple. That's just easy. And by the way, there's no counterplay with the f pawn either. I've got that under lock and key.
Although Fabiano's taking down his seconds, actually has to play rather quickly, 45 seconds here in the position, and 1 minute and 15 seconds after he played rook takes f2. Of course, with the increment, we can't overstate the time here, but
right, that 30-second increment is such a big one.
But it's still keep an eye on him and make
so
sure
king
that he
g3?
doesn't misstep at these critical moments. Yes, king to g3.
Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of choices, but I do like rook c3 check once again. I don't think that's the only move in the position. I think even maybe rook c4 actually has something to be said for it as well. I mean, not completely a bad move, but rook c3 check seems obvious.
This is the nightmare of Fabiano fans everywhere as he goes under 30 seconds. Make a move!
Oh, by the way, keep in mind that Fabiano can throw in a series of checks whenever he wants. And he could go like check, check.
Indeed, that would be a clever thing to do. And you do see him
grab a couple of extra minutes by just throwing in those extra repetition.
And it does seem like he's played, and he's doing that indeed. He's taking your advice, Yasser.
Well, it's something that actually I also learned from the Soviets. They like to make a repetition when they could force it to just give you the impression they have a draw anytime they liked it. So it's kind of a psychological...
Just make sure you don't do it one too many times.
As has happened to me.
Unfortunately, that has happened to plenty of players. They get a little confused.
On the screen we see multiple zeros for Caruana, but that is not the case, obviously. He has been gaining time, 30 seconds a move every time he moves. So our clock times are not accurate.
I see.
Yeah, we're waiting for this board to update.
Aha. I see. We're not getting updated on the board, but it does appear that rook c3 check was tossed in, and we have, I think, a couple of back and forth so that Fabiano could gain a few minutes on his clock and think about the best way of reeling in victory. And I think king c7 is the proper way to do it.
That's right. And Fabiano now, after gaining a little bit of time in the clock, seems to be thinking yet again. Mm-hmm. So we'll try to adjust the situation here. And meanwhile, how's it going over
in Magnus World?
Aronian's game, yeah.
Well, the world champion is advanced his pawn as we were looking at a rather long-winded forcing line. King h3 has just been played. I thought a3 would be played. Not the only move, by the way, for Magnus. Magnus has another cagey idea, which is to bring the king over and put the rook here. Don't quite get that. So let's say a3 once again. Let's say rook over, king, and this was the line that we were paying attention to last time. Again, I still will. Let's stay with our tournament leader for a moment.
Let's take another look at the webcam as we try to reconstruct that position.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to take a look at the camera shot of Nakamura and Caruana. Again, almost caught myself there saying the right car. There they are. Nakamura is not looking pleased. Looking up at the ceiling, a massive crowd still watching their game. These guys are not getting tired of it. Of course, there's bigger crowds over at Leicester's.
Right.
And at the World Chess Hall of Fame. But if you come to St. Louis, you can also watch the games in person. So we see actually that it looks like White's king has gone to h5.
Whoa.
Somehow.
How did that happen? No, it's still
no,
on G4.
G4 still. Okay, so rook c3 check
was played as anticipated.
C3 was played, and then King
King
G4.
takes G4 has been played. And then we did see probably a series of
and then
checks.
Rook C2 check.
Right. We're going to do it one time just for fun, and then we'll go with King C7.
And then King C7 did occur. Yeah, we see that King on C7 right there in the position.
Now we're up to date with the players. And he called
And that
it
makes
a
sense
play.
because if Fabiano was thinking, then he would have lost on time by now. And actually, we have updated the board now, and 37 seconds for Fabiano Caruana, and a little over 17 minutes for Nakamura. So despite the winning position that Fabiano has, we got to keep our eyes on this just because playing in the increment is never fun.
No. Strange things happen when you fall into time trouble. I played blitz chess my whole life. I've enjoyed 5-minute chess from the time I first played chess. And I played many, many, many games where I've had seconds on my clock and never felt nervous. However, in classical chess, when I have minutes on my clock, I suddenly do get nervous. Maurice, your thoughts?
Just a big development in another game. The other game we are watching between Magnus Carlsen. I keep getting that kid's. I'm just going to call him Magnus from now on. Magnus's game and Aronian's game. This position, we notice the king is going to march up if you try to get this pawn to go down. So Magnus said, no way I'm letting that happen. And he sacrificed the pawn here with the move g5, allowing f takes g5, and now rook to b4, saying, no way I'm letting your king go up the board. So down, giving back his extra pawn, but not allowing the white king to get active. And the Indians say, this is a reasonable idea. And it's not so easy to pick off this pawn. Your king can't go up. This e-pawn might get into trouble, and this king is back to the plan of bringing itself around. So g5, a dynamic move. Clearly, the world champion is looking to win this game to try to keep pace with his rival, who looks like he's going to run away from the field. Magnus knows he needs to put some points on the board. A risky move, g5? Maybe not. It looks like a good idea in this endgame. Guys?
Right, because it seemed very difficult for Magnus to win otherwise. I like this plan that Levon came up with, and this counter idea. What a battle we're seeing here. Great move, g5. I didn't have it on my Spidey radar, but that makes a lot of sense to keep White's king passive and not allow it to get to f6 where it can munch off a lot of pawns.
Right, because that was your key defensive idea.
Right, and so now Levon needs a reset. Not so easy at all, suddenly.
Do you want to pull up that game?
Yeah, a big challenge for Levon. What's he going to do? Because he invested a lot in this idea of king h4. Let me just show you one example of something that is probably a very bad idea for White. Is if you go after this pawn with the rook, it's going to take you so long that this pawn, the difference is that when your rook isn't able to get behind the pawn in time,
we get behind.
We get behind, and that's all she wrote.
Party time, yeah.
Exactly. So White doesn't have the time to go after this pawn on h5, and he's got to come up with something very clever indeed, because otherwise, as Marie said, king comes to d7, worms its way around to c6, and maybe it starts to pick off the e5 pawn. Also, another idea that's not out of question either is a rook g4, rook takes g5, rook takes e5 idea too, although you don't want to get a 3 versus 2. But the more I'm looking at this move g5, I'm saying great plan, and boy, Levon's going to have to be very, very precise in terms of holding this game, if he can.
What do you think? Do you think he's got it in him today?
I don't know.
Both players, Levon with a little bit more time, but it shouldn't be too significant of a difference. 7.5 minutes versus 5 minutes.
Right. It is a bit of a confusing position. Instinctively, I would think that black has more resources than I'm finding, so it means that I'm just getting tired. This position is...
You mean white has more resources,
No,
right?
black has more
okay.
defensive resources than I'm finding. Right now, I'm not finding
Defensive
the defensive
resources
defensive
for white.
No, black's trying... Oh,
Yeah,
you're right.
That's what I was trying to
you're
confuse.
Okay, now I am getting tired. Okay, I'm sure white has more defensive resources than I'm finding, because I'm not finding them. And I know that these rook endings are so tricky, and at the moment, white's not even down a pawn, but I'm having a hard time coming up with a good plan. So I've got to make a pass. So let me make a pass for a moment. Let me just on my board play the move rook a8 and try to understand. Okay, here at least I've got this pawn. The g6 pawn as a source of counterplay. But I'm seeing this move rook g4, and I'm fearful that the king could actually just come up here and take this pawn. But
So
let's
rook
see.
a7.
Rook a7. King b5, right?
Okay, that one I like.
Okay, so now I'm protecting this pawn, and I've got a very simple idea of going with the king. This king over here, in the meanwhile, has got to get into the game. The only way you can do that is to play g6, toss that pawn down and try to get your king up, right, Jen?
Yes, exactly.
So far I'm okay, right? So let's say I go down here. And what are we going to try? g7?
Sure.
Okay, and away we go. And this one looks winning.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure. I can toss in a lot of checks and force your king in front of the pawn and then go for g8.
G8 and king h4, just like
Right.
you were trying before, indeed.
Well, but that actually, I'm wrong. No, I am right. With the pawn on g7, of course, you can't bridge your king.
No, so you're going to have to stick it on a2 at some point, yeah.
Or I'm thinking a1, right? Okay, so we got it here. Oh boy, deep breath. Here we go. g8 equals queen. Is this enough counterplay for Armenia's #1 player? Jeez.
So now you want to try to get your rook to b2 or something, huh?
Right. We have to, boy.
See if you can weather the storm with the
rook
pawns.
endings are tough. So if a2, so I was thinking, oops, I'm sorry. I was thinking that rook comes down here, right? With idea of liberating the king with rook b2. So we keep going. It's a long-winded variation. I do apologize to the audience here, but this is what we do. And this looks like it should be a draw.
Yeah, we're cool here.
Wow. So on the edge, very nice idea by Magnus Carlsen to give himself chances with
And a
G5.
couple of moves in the Nakamura-Caruana game, and Maurice
Sure.
has that for us.
Well, actually, I wanted to analyze another position. This game right here, he did play queen d8 check and rook back to c7 has been played. We can get to that in a second. But I wanted to show you guys a pretty line. In this position between Magnus and Levon, rook c7 check is also playable, trying to drive the king away. And in this position, king to f8, and now rook to a7, getting behind the pawn, and now rook to e4. The other option, of course, is what you talked about, Yaz, rook to g4. Take a look at this line, g6, giving away the pawn. Okay, what's your idea? And now g4, surprising move, offering a second pawn, asking you to double your pawns. Well, he could take, and that leads to a strange position. But what about this line? Rook takes on g4, and suddenly rook to f7 check, and you cannot get out of the continuous checks because, of course, any capture would lead to a stalemate. So some ideas hidden in the position. We did say that after g6, g4 here, a takes g4 is possible, but now the king can get active and look to try to get into the position. Black would be best served maybe playing the move g3, forcing him to come backwards and take this pawn, but now it's very hard for black to get anything going because of the rook on the 7th rank, this rook being tied down. If he takes this one, then this one gets captured and this pawn is not as powerful as it ought to be. So definitely some weird chances in these rook and pawn endings. We know a lot of them lead to draws, but you still have to find the moves. Guys?
And that's instructive for us.
Yeah, and those stalemate resources are so wonderful when you get to play them. When your opponent finds a stalemate resource, it's just horrible. They're like, how could I let it go?
Now, it's great, these rook endgames. Everybody always talks about how important it is to study rook endgames, but I feel that sometimes we have to remember rook verse pawn. That's really important too, because the rook endgames often lead to rook verse pawn positions, where you have to accurately calculate those endgames. Do you have enough counterplay when you sacrifice your rook?
Absolutely, absolutely. I had a dear friend, Michael Fournette. Unfortunately, he has passed away. He was many times the champion of Washington State. And he said, Yasser, study your endgames. I said, why? He says, it's like cheating. I said, what? It's like cheating. If you go in school and you have an exam and your teacher says, well, we're going to ask this question about you. If you're prepared, you know the answer. Studying rook endings is like cheating, because it's absolutely 100% guaranteed. If you're a tournament player and you're an active player, you're going to get rook endings. So study your rooks.
Like a mom telling their kid that vegetables are bad for you.
Vegetables are good for you. Eat your vegetables and study your rook endings.
Vegetables are bad for you because then they'll want to eat them. That sounds like the reverse psychology he was using on you. Like, it's like you're tricking people by studying your endgames.
No, and it was a great encouragement, in fact.
So it worked.
It worked big time. I worked hard on my endings. Speaking of endings, in the game between Caruana and Hikaru, here we see that Fabiano is just finding a safe haven for his king. Finally, he's fled over to the queen's side. This is all she wrote, folks. I mean, everything is nice and consolidated at this point. And after rook c7, we can see that no more big threats against the king. This pawn on f5, pardon me, is not going anywhere. The f6 square is covered, and I don't see anything at all to be done here.
Nakamura took on d5, it appears.
He did play queen takes
yes,
d5.
and the time situation's equalizing a little bit. Nakamura now down to 6 minutes, so.
I'm surprised that Hikaru is continuing to play. Beyond the fact that rook g7 check could potentially end up checkmating the white king, I'm just thinking a very simple bishop c5. Again, you're covering all.
And bishop c5 was played. Fabiano playing your move. And
easy,
I like though that Nakamura is not resigning though. It's fun for us.
Yeah, but okay. I mean, 2 rooks and a bishop versus a queen, and you're losing the a3 pawn, and well, it's just horrible. I'm afraid to say there's just no reason to continue play, as I see it at least. I mean,
he is on moves. He's twirling a pawn. Chris Bird, the international arbiter directing this tournament earlier, said that he's pretty impressed by Nakamura's pawn twirling skills.
Okay.
I feel like that's, is that a compliment or an insult?
I don't know. I always thought it was an extremely bad habit.
And we do have another move. He is not giving up yet.
Okay. He has played queen David.
Queen d8. Maurice, what do you think?
Yes, you want him to resign just because the guy's up some material? Come on. We just complained about resignation in the other game. We want to see the ending. We want to see the finish. You guys should play. It clearly is losing for black from our eyes. But the fans out there want to know, that king has been chased around. We just saw a crazy stalemating line in another position. So I believe in what Nakamura is doing. He's making moves until it's actually time to give up. And his queen should just keep harassing the king until Fabiano proves it, especially being in time pressure. Fabiano has a minute and change on the clock. When he gets like 3 minutes after he pumps up his time by making a lot of moves, and maybe 5 minutes. But until then, I think the right thing to do is to keep making moves, even though clearly it's busted for white.
I agree. It is fun for us to watch how this game will conclude, and I think more likely the game will conclude when Nakamura uses his 5 minutes and ends up just, basically flagging himself, or not, if not flagging, just kind of
Fair enough. I forgot about Fabiano being slightly behind on time. But come on, guys. If you were to see us move rook a2 for a moment, I mean, you just see that you're going to lose this pawn on a3. Your f pawn's not going anywhere.
I think there's an instinct when there's a queen on the board, even if the queen is totally outranked by all these pieces, to maybe play it a little bit longer, because there's always these like little checks and potential perpetuals. And
By the way, he played the move king to b7 in that position. Did white, did black, excuse me. So you know, you talked about rook a2, Yaz. Now you play rook a2.
Right.
Okay, we don't expect him to do that, but in a little bit of time pressure, strange things happen. So I think Hikaru, with his bullet skills and speed check, you know, he's like, let me just monkey around and float and see what happens next. Guys have been known to make worse moves than that.
yeah, he's played f6 instead.
After, king b7 was played f.
And now he's played f6.
f6 has been played.
Yeah, so f7, of course, is really well protected by both rooks, so that's not a threat.
Well, I would, again, I'm eyeballing this idea of winning this pawn on a2. I think I would probably toss in a rook g2 check just to see where that king might end up, or maybe even simply rook c7. Rook c2 with the idea of rook c4
And
check.
Fabiano instead has just snapped the pawn on a3.
Oh, okay, I am tired. Bishop takes a3. I love grabbing pawns. I would grab this pawn as well.
Right, so no way to take advantage of that loose bishop. Only one check, only one reasonable check on the board, and
Check on d5, king. Well, actually, I have a choice here: king b6, as well as king
because
a7.
you can block our second check on d4 with bishop c5 very gracefully.
Precisely. That's total consolidation. That's over. So bishop takes a3, obvious.
And still playing basically on the increment, about 1 minute for Fabiano and about a little less than 5.
By the way, since I've never had to ask, is there a second? Pardon me. Is there a time control
so
after
this is it. Yeah.
So he's going to be playing on increment for the rest of the game. In fact, both players will be. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I wasn't certain. I should know these things. Maybe I should just read the program guide.
As I recall, yes. Maurice, what are your thoughts?
The other game did feature a sacrifice that we had anticipated. The move g6 was played after rook check, king over. This rook was on g4. In this moment, white played g6, clearing the 7th rank of pawns, so that now the black king is frozen on the back rank, and king back to g2, g5, and king to f3. This position is looking more and more drawn. White's king now released, black's king still on the back row. An extra pawn for black, but it doesn't seem as though he's going to be able to make good use of this. So it seems as though Aronian will be able to pull off a draw here, in which case there'll be one person, only one person in the tournament sitting on 50%. That would be Topalov. Can you imagine that? After he started off -2, he'll be sitting on 50%, while everyone else in the tournament would be at -1, except for Nakamura, who will go to -2 after this loss, and Fabiano 2.5 points ahead of Topalov, 3 points ahead of everybody else, just dominating the tournament, looking quite relaxed. It will look as though this tournament is over if he does do what he's supposed to do right now and win the game. Guys?
Wow, so we got a couple more moves in Caruana and Nakamura, and my prediction is that Nakamura will resign soon. He looked too angry after that last move.
The last move being queen d5 to d8, right? Okay, so we had this position. We saw the move queen d5 check. Anticipated that after king b6, we get to meet queen d4 check. No, you're not picking up the rook. I get to play bishop c5. Queen d8 was played by Hikaru. Fabiano having to play a little bit quickly as he's on increment, and he played bishop c5.
He did play bishop c5, and now looks like Hikaru's made another queen move.
It looks like queen b8 check.
Well, he really only has a queen, so I guess that's not too astonishing of a prediction, is it?
I'm sorry, what move did he play after?
A queen b8 check, and followed by rook to b7.
rook to b7. So the
And now he looks like he's looking directly in the camera as if he can hear us.
oh boy, I don't want to disturb his concentration.
No, of course he can't. But it just for that moment, it felt like a wall was being broken down.
Right. Well, king a7, and now we're really in a kind of a fortress cave. The rook is nicely behind the f pawn. Nothing to the bishop could even go back to b6, and then one day, guess what? This a pawn is going to just go up the board, or the
No,
b pawn.
one note.
More importantly, guys, the B pawn,
B
the rook
pawn.
is now behind the pawn
Yeah.
magically, and it's going to push the B pawn, and it's going to be all she wrote when that pawn goes down the board.
You can
I think
close-
it's a very good time now to start looking at the board and thinking, yeah, this is over.
When you can close your eyes and make the moves, sure. But for those at home who are watching, I really think that if you have a queen, no matter how many pieces your opponent has, you shouldn't resign. Because you never know when you could get some kind of perpetual. I mean, of course, these are super grandmasters, but I think it's really important, especially when your opponent is in time pressure. Don't resign too early.
Yeah, usually you always have an opportunity to resign. That is a good point.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
like what didn't Vasselin say? You can always resign later. That's what he
Yes,
said
you can
about
always resign.
MDL's resignation earlier.
Unless you get checkmated. Going back to our other game, Magnus Carlsen, world champion Magnus Carlsen.
You can always die later.
Always die later.
You will
Oof.
die later.
Ooh,
That's
brutal.
the idea, right?
Okay, so when we have left it, Maurice was mentioning that with this rook nicely placed on the 7th rank, cutting off Black's king, Black has a lot of trouble making progress, but he has tried king g6 and h4, trying to create a little bit of a weakness on g3 so that maybe he could go back here with rook g4 and be able to take this pawn with check. Well, I think I would just take this guy, frankly. Take on h4, and in case of rook takes h4, just wait. King e3. Well, there's a little trick in the position. I beg your pardon.
Yeah,
There is
little
this
skewer, huh?
little nasty. Okay, so Magnus does have some little tricks here, and the
But you could go the other way, just the
Well,
C3 way.
I thought that the thing I wanted to avoid is I didn't want to really allow. Let me play a move for Black. Another. What's wrong with my screen? Okay, I'm getting a little trouble. Oops. Has HG3 been played already? Oh.
H takes G3.
Has been played already.
And
So
H,
king-
so H takes H takes G3. It's a position.
Right. So the thing that I didn't want to allow Black was the opportunity for Black to play H3 and maybe the H2 pawn, get in H3 and G4. So king C3, but HG3 has been played. We anticipate recaptures. Sorry, I should point out that king takes would be a horrible mistake thanks to G2. So we don't take the rook, we take the pawn. And we come back here with the rook now. Okay. So now how should we defend this, Jen?
Okay, maybe move that king away to B2, for instance.
Okay, king to B2.
So that rook takes G3 doesn't come with check.
True. And then I think that what Magnus has to do is move his king back over to the queen side. Or hold on, you have rook e4
Well, I was
as
thinking
well.
rook A6, yeah.
Rook e4 as well. I beg your
Well,
pardon.
okay, so if rook, so wait, king B2, you want to play rook E4 now?
Yeah, king b2, rook e4. I apologize.
Okay.
Much stronger.
Yeah, and so
Freezing
suppose I
everything.
play.
King a3.
Yeah, sure.
Well, you want to go after this pawn after all.
Well, I don't know about king A. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you're not really afraid of rook
So-
check, right? Because then I'll get king takes.
And also, if rook takes C5, you take with the king, so I don't get both of the pawns, right?
Yeah, I think so. So king a3. I was thinking the king and pawn ending. No chances for Black in the king and pawn endgame. G4 takes, king.
So Magnus just has played the move A3 in the game.
I beg your pardon.
Magnus played the move A3 in the game.
We're here,
No. H takes G3, so the king's still in D. Yeah.
and then rook G4.
Get caught up. Let's see. Let's get caught
Okay,
up.
just a second. Sorry, folks. I just have to refresh my monitor. So after...
So after H takes rook G4, king D3, A3.
I see.
Utilizing that same skewer idea, so rook A3, rook takes G3.
Right.
And so after that, Levon started shuttling his king over, king E3.
Mm-hmm.
And now, after rook takes G3 check, king to D4.
Whoa.
So trying to get his
What is
king
Levon
active on the
doing?
D6 square.
Now I'm really confused. I think that Magnus is winning. I would just play rook
And we have a handshake in the other game.
E3.
So Fabiano Caruana winning his 5th game of the tournament.
5
Victorious.
in a row. Wow.
So let us know what your favorite Fabiano nickname is. Mr. Perfect, Don Fabiano. Come up with a brand new one because we're going to need to pick the right one as Fabiano just slashes through this tournament.
The superlatives are piling up. It's a historic tournament, the strongest tournament of all times. I was expecting a big fight for first place, and one guy is just running away with this event. I'm having to catch my breath. I can't believe
It's
what
in
I'm
such beautiful
witnessing.
play too.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, sure, one misstep today, missing bishop to h4, but otherwise, just phenomenal.
And absolutely, I'm lost.
So we have one game left, and it seems that Levon has misstepped, trying
Big
to,
time.
trying to get his king active in the d6
I think we're going to
way,
see.
but
I
the
think
problem
we're
is
gonna
that
see
that
3
pawn
wins.
on g5 is also running away.
Well, exactly. I think we're going to see 3 wins, 3 decisive games. I beg your
Two black wins and one white win. Yeah.
Exactly. And King C5 was the last move. But hold on, do I have this right?
Yep, you've got the right position on the board.
King.
So king c5 just played,
Just played, but
and now Magnus played rook to d3.
exactly. And he's got 2 connected two outside pass pawns. And by the way,
And one of those big ideas was for white to get the king to d6 in a variation like ring a7 and king d6. Magnus just disallowing that.
cut him off with rook d3. There's no king
And
d6.
he's not going to live long here.
No, it's resigns. It's just one of the passed pawns makes a queen, and it's just resigns. It's a stunning turn of events. For example, king c4 is one example of how these passed pawns promote themselves to a queen.
Very pretty. You can stop one, but you can't stop two. Maurice, what do you think about this
A shocking,
crazy round, which ends up being just as exciting as some of our others?
Completely shocking. You're watching
And
the
there it
top
is.
players. Wow.
The game is over.
Just falling apart now. Aronian. Remember how close he was. We talk about Caruana closing in on Carlsen. What about the way he's distancing himself from Aronian? I mean, they're separated now by about 30 rating points when he was actually behind Aronian to start this tournament. An incredible sequence. I mean, have you ever seen anything like this at the highest levels? This is just incredible. Not just Fabiano's runaway play so far, but just the way other players are playing, including the way Aronian has handled himself here. Just a complete collapse for him. Unfortunate. The moment where he erred, well, right here after the move rook to g4, he should have instead played king to d2 right now, stepping out of the check. Well, we still see this on camera. We see them chatting, but if we get a chance to analyze this position just a bit to see the critical moment when he erred, and you can see him there just looking pretty disgusted at the moment, not at all happy with his play, just getting up, walking away from the board. Carlsen, of course, winning, feeling much better about himself for sure, just winning an endgame that was basically gifted to him. Now they're just walking away from the table. And so if we get a chance right here, in this moment after rook to g4, the key move he should have played, of course, right in this moment, he should have played king to d2. Like that's the magic move right now. Move your king back toward this pawn here, and if takes on g3, then just take on a4. And his king steps out of the checks. He allowed this position to change otherwise, and Magnus, the Magnificent, winning in endgames, his persistency showing itself. And now he is at 50%. So he has joined Topalov, both of them at 50% before the rest day. Still 2.5 full points behind Caruana. That's going to be a tall order to chase down that guy. He's putting on a pace like we haven't seen in many a year. 5-0 to start the tournament. I'm sure everybody's happy that they have a rest day right now, except maybe this guy named Fabiano. He's like, let's keep playing. Don't stop now. Magic is coming out of my fingertips. What an exhilarating start to a tournament by this young player, the youngest player in the competition. Guys?
Breathtaking.
Incredible. That's right. Fabiano. You called Magnus magnificent and Fabiano fabulous. So we are going to kill you with our puns.
Yes, it's going to be terrible. It's going to get worse as it goes
If you don't
up.
die by checkmate or time lost, you will die by pawn.
It's going to be worse. And a shocking loss by Levon. He's normally a superb rook ending player, and something is not clicking for Levon. He hasn't looked good at all, even though he even won a nice game against Topalov at the end. He had a bad position and a bad opening that got him there. So Levon's not looking very good, and
Magnus now on an even score, and also at least not narrowing the gap further between him and Caruana for the world rankings. And speaking of which, we do have our tournament leader, perfect 5-0 going into the rest day, Fabiano Caruana.
Well, Hawaii 5-0, right? This guy is taking everybody down with his play. Fabiano, welcome to the show. Can you ever have imagined starting 5-0 against this gang? I mean, these are some serious players, and you've just blitzed the field in the first half.
No, I couldn't have even dreamed that I would start with a perfect score. But okay, all the games are going perfectly for me. I don't know if it's a matter of luck or I'm just playing well. I think I am playing well, but yeah, there has been some luck involved. But in any case, it's a fantastic start. I couldn't have imagined that I would do something like this.
We see you had a strong game here, and this position, g4, and then you had the chance to play the move bishop h4 and just nail the position. You pointed out that you missed this. When you saw him get his queen back and start to create some perpetual check chances, how did you feel? Did you feel like something was wrong, that you had to work that hard to win the game?
Yeah, I felt like it was pretty much winning before, and I had complicated it quite a lot. I missed his maneuver, queen e2, queen d3. For some reason, I stopped in my preliminary calculations. I stopped after king f7, and then I realized that his queen is starting to cause some problems. I completely missed bishop h4. That would have been a nice way to end the game, but I didn't see it.
We can forgive you for missing one or two moves in this tournament, the way you have been playing. Then you were able to get a stranglehold later. Were you happy when you saw him play f5 instead of king f1? Like now things had settled down, you just take on d4?
I can't say I was happy. I had about 2 minutes, and it was very difficult to calculate everything. There's a lot of checks. I was worried that I'd blunder my bishop and lose. But yeah, after f5, I didn't see anything for him. It seemed like I was winning. Yeah, king f1 was a better chance. I felt like I was winning, but it's very complicated.
What's the secret? What's going on? What have you done differently for this tournament that's making you play so well?
I wish I knew. I don't know. I'm just playing the way I normally do, but somehow it's just going better. I think I'm playing a bit more confidently, a bit faster, trying to take less time. In the middle game here, it was very complicated, but I think I made some decent moves at a good pace, and that helped me gain an advantage later on.
I made a comment that the other players are happy to see a rest day. Are you happy to see a rest day?
Oh yeah, very happy.
Why is that? You're playing so well.
Yeah, my result is great, but I'm still tired. The result might not show it, but all the games have been difficult, and it's good to take a break.
Question: are you interested in 10-0?
I don't think that will happen, but I'm interested in winning as many games as I can.
What about the situation in the tournament? You're 2.5 points. That's unheard of. I mean, against Magnus Carlsen is 2.5 points behind you. Levon Aronian is 3, maybe 4 points behind you now. How is? Can you imagine? Well, 3.5 points behind. How could you imagine this kind of result? It just seems really epic. Just even out of context of yourself, just any player doing this.
Well, if Magnus was doing it, we wouldn't be so surprised, I guess. But for me, it's pretty unusual. But okay, I mean, I can't complain, you know. And yeah, okay, I just have to say that the tournament still isn't over, that anything can happen, and I have to keep on playing well. I really don't want to screw it up.
Last question. What's your favorite nickname? Is it Fabulous Fabiano, Mr. Perfect? What's the other one, Jen? Help me out. They've been throwing a lot
Don
of...
Fabiano.
Don Fabiano. Should we stop one of those? Or which one don't you want?
People who know me just call me Fabi. That's about it. I don't really like any nicknames.
Fabi. All right. Well, the man with one name now. So we really appreciate your play, and best of luck in the rest of your games.
Thanks.
Fabi. Somehow it's not like Don Fabiano. You know, that sounds gangster. That sounds serious, like something bad's going to happen. But the way he's playing, he can be called anything he wants. Back to you guys.
Well, at least when he's in the room. When he's gone, we'll use some of the more superlative nicknames, right?
I like Fabi.
Well,
That's
Fabi's cool. Anish,
very endearing.
Anish used Fabi in his tweet about how impressed he was by Fabiano.
Very nice. I like it. I like it. It's soft. It's endearing. Very good. Don? No, we're going to stay away from Don. We'll leave that alone.
Well, keep the suggestions coming. And as we go into the rest day, just a reminder, we aren't going to be here tomorrow, so don't tune in or tune in and wait for 24 hours.
Tune in for Tuesday.
And let's take a quick look at the standings as we go into the rest day. Of course, this one's not hard to guess. Fabiano Caruana with a perfect 5-0 score. And behind him, not just behind him, but way behind him, Veselin Topalov and Magnus Carlsen, both with 2.5 out of 5 even scores. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, 2 out of 5, and Hikaru Nakamura and Levon Aronian, both tied for last with 1.5 points. Now we do have one player on the upswing, and world champion Magnus Carlsen, he is getting set up for an interview about his victory today against Levon Aronian.
Exactly. I'm sure he'll be very pleased with the result and just rather stunned like the rest of us watching Fabiano win.
Racking up those wins, indeed.
Wow.
And here he is. World champion Magnus Carlsen is with Maurice Ashley.
Thanks, Jen. With world number 1, Magnus Carlsen, after a victory today. Welcome to the show, Magnus. This game was tough. I mean, there were real chances to just be a draw, but you seem to be able to pull it off. What happened that gave you those opportunities?
Well, I think it was pretty equal in the middle game. Perhaps it was a little bit better. Then it sort of turned around, I think, when I got in this B5, BC4. And then I hoped that I might have some chances in the long game. But well, then he sacrificed the pawn, which was probably a decent idea. We eventually got to this rook endgame, which should be drawn, but it's not so easy.
So was there a clear draw to you? Was it the moment when he maybe allowed you to get that H4 takes on G3, and then maybe he could have equalized there?
Yeah, well, he could have traded my passed A pawn for his G and E pawns with a probable draw, but not an easy draw at least. And he decided to, yeah, when he allowed the HG3, of course it was lost. But I think at that point it was very, very difficult anyway.
It's not every day that numbers 1 and 2 in the world play each other, and that's not the key game of the day. You managed to win, of course, always a great thing to beat a rival like Levon. But everybody's watching Fabiano and thinking, what is happening here? This guy is 5-0, and he played another great game today. As a star player yourself who's played great tournaments, what's your thought on his play so far?
Well, I guess his game today was probably his least convincing so far. But nevertheless, what can you do? I mean, winning 5 games in such an event is something that rarely happens, and obviously winning 5 games in a row, that it's something that has barely happened before. So it's amazing. But for me, I'm just happy to get going myself, yeah, to be able to start my own tournament, maybe eventually see if I can do something. But
what are your thoughts? You're at 2.5, he's at 5. It is only the first half of the event with 5 rounds to go. Is this tournament over?
No, but it's, I mean, obviously it's not enough for me to beat him with black, and that says quite a bit that that beating the leader with black is not even going to be close to to enough. So I'll just focus on my own games. I mean, today was good. Today was, I think, more or less at a normal level, the kind of chess I want to play, and if I can continue with that, I can at least have a good tournament. But obviously, first place is way out there. So
The rest day, feeling good for a rest day, or now that you've won, you'd like to keep going?
Yeah, it's okay. It's always good to keep going after a rest day, but no, I mean after a win, especially since Hikaru had a tough loss today. I mean it's a tough event, and I'm probably going to be happy about that rest day at the end. So.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, and get your rest, and we look forward to your game in 2 days.
Thank you.
World champion Magnus Carlsen pulling off a victory in his style, grinding his opponent down, and he's at 50% going into the rest day. Guys?
Thank you, Maurice.
Although you might have to win a game with burning candles before.
Oh, yes. Well, for the rest day, we do have the burning candles. Not the most thrilling round, but one of the most decisive rounds.
This? Today? You don't think that was thrilling?
No. I thought
3 decisive games.
No, I thought the results were great. I just some of the other games were really explosive
But very
and exciting.
instructive day.
Yeah,
very
it was
instructive strategically.
it
a
was
lot to take from it.
It was a day of strategy. Well, like for example, the game that Magnus won. It wasn't the thrilling game. I mean, we stand back and we applaud all the nice plotting moves that increase the advantage, but it was just a game. It was just a tough round.
But it was a reminder
chess.
to study endgames, and you were telling a story about how important
Exactly.
it is. One of the IMs from Lindenwood, Priyadarshan and Kanapan,
Yes.
brought his endgame manual for all the grandmasters to sign, including Magnus. And Magnus
really?
asked, "Hey, did you read it?"
Yeah,
He could say yes. He has gotten a couple GM norms recently.
that's
but
true.
Always possible to reread it, right?
Exactly.
And we have a final thought from Grandmaster Maurice Ashley as we head to the rest day.
No question about it. These games today were not as thrilling as previous days, but chess is a fight first. Emmanuel Lasker said, chess is a struggle, and it's he who can struggle the hardest, or she who can fight the most and endure the most, that wins those games. And that's what we saw today. Tenacity on the players, determination. With the rest day coming, they decided to give it all, and it was possible for the world champion to win his game, former world champion Vasilij Topalov to win his game. But let's be serious. There's only one guy's name that seems to count in this tournament, and everyone's sitting in amazement. Fabiano Caruana winning a game after a slip at one moment, but still having the tenacity, having the determination. Of course, his opponent had to make some inferior moves as well, but he went ahead, and he's now at 5-0. I mean, everybody sit back and think about that. 5-0 in the strongest chess tournament ever. That is huge. I am amazed and mystified, and I'm looking forward to the rest day, but I can't wait to get back and watch what this is going to finish like as the other players gun for him to try to pull him back to earth. It's going to be a thrilling finish. Guys?
Thank you, Maurice. It's been a pleasure commenting on the first half of this tournament with Maurice and Yasser and having Karen's reports outside. So don't miss the second half. We will see you guys on Tuesday at 2:50 Eastern and 1:50 Central Standard Time here in the Central West End. Come live and pay us a visit.